Well, I want to introduce myself to everyone. I'm Mike Jones, and my wife Barbara and I, back in 1987, started a trucking company. I started it with one truck, one driver. I was the driver, and we were able to, do pretty good with it. Now we started with the company was RPS, Roadway Package System. Now, Roadway Package System, of course, was a division of Roadway Trucking Company. Roadway Trucking, which eventually was bought out by Yella a few years ago, and it was YRC. It was changed to YRC. But back in the 80s, back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it was known as Roadway Trucking Company. And they started a package division to compete with UPS, and they had the good foresight to see that the market was ready for this, and they took it upon themselves to do that. Now, initially, I had, for the first 6 months, I actually had to run a package van. They didn't have a Linehaul run for me, or they didn't. It wasn't even in existence at that time. RPS had started in 1985. I started with them in 1987. So they'd started, I think, in the fall of '85. So they'd been in existence about a year and a half, and they were growing as many locations as they could. They first initially started on the East Coast and Canada, and then it continued across the entire United States. They started building hubs as they saw fit. And of course, a lot of times they were starting these hubs in rundown old freight terminals. And the first couple of terminals that, or hub terminals that I saw, were converted freight terminals. And so it was a struggling company. It was a new division of Roadway, but it was a struggling company, but I knew it was a growing company. I mean, Roadway had a lot of power in the trucking company back in the trucking industry back in the 80s, and I had worked previously for a company called Carolina Freight. So I had about 10 years under my belt with them as a yard switcher and a local driver. So I knew the freight industry, and I grew up in it. My father was a truck driver for 38 years for Carolina Freight, which was, it's not in existence anymore, which was located here in my hometown of Cherryville, North Carolina. It started here, and then it was eventually bought out by ABF. But I got a lot of experience as a driver, yard switcher, and just as having good general knowledge of how the trucking industry worked. Kind of growing up on that. I mean, my father did it all of my youth. I mean, the only job I ever remember my father having was a driver at Carolina Freight Carriers, and he did that, like I said, for 38 years until he retired. But it's been a good industry for me. Like I said, it's the primary thing that I know. It's the primary thing that has been good for me. Now, I have tried a few other things in my life. I worked at Carolina Freight from the time I was a teenager. I actually started there when I was 16, 17 years old, loading freight. And then I progressed and was able to learn how to run a yard switcher. And then I was hired regular in the union as a yard switcher when I was 19 years old. And that created the basis of what my knowledge was, and carried well for me for the rest of my life as far as a driver, or for the rest of my career. And I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed the knowledge that I gained as a switcher, a local driver, and then later on a line haul driver for RPS and FedEx. But to get back to the RPS days, I saw the opportunity. I mean, it just so happened I kind of fell into it as far as the opportunity. I saw a package delivery of RPS one day when I was taking lunch for another job that I had. I went up to the gentleman, the two gentlemen. It was a trainer and a driver, and he was training the new guy. And I asked him. I said, "Are there anything? Is there anything available at RPS?" I said, "I'd like to, give it a try." And I'd been away from the freight business for about 7 years, 6 or 7 years. So I knew that the freight business was booming again, starting to boom again, and I wanted to give it a try if I could. So what I did, he gave me the name of the terminal manager at Hickory, North Carolina. So I went up and had an interview with them, and I got hired. I got hired as a package delivery driver. And all along, knowing that I'd probably love to get back into line haul, but I got my foot in the door. I got in there as a package delivery driver. Now, it's tough work. It still is tough work. I did that, like I said, for 6 months, and they had a opening for a line haul. They wanted to put a line haul that was dedicated at the Hickory terminal. Well, I bought a truck. I bought a tractor trailer truck. We had to buy them. They had to be no older than 5 years old at the time. So I was able to get an 82 model TranStar International, and I put it on. It was not very expensive. It was actually less expensive than my package van. I was able to get a good used one. My cousin had some connections with U-Haul, and it was a U-Haul tractor trailer truck. And I took it and cleaned it up, painted it, and drove it for several years. And it got me started as a line haul contractor and driver. Well, I was already a contractor, but it got me started as a line haul contractor at that point.